She heard him cry right here. Said he sounded like a man being skinned alive. Sheriff Boyd struck a match with his thumb, slow and careful. Smoke curled from the side of his mouth before he answered. You don't say things like that in front of guests. There aren't any left, Marlene said. She crouched low in her black dress, heels off, toes in the dirt, one hand steady on the edge of the rotting shed. Her nails were still painted from the service, cheap polish, chipped and dull. Behind them, the house moaned in the wind, white siding peeled like old skin. Voices whispered through the boards, barely above breath, then stopped altogether when Boyd turned his head. You need to come back inside, he said. I'm not done talking to her. She isn't in there. Marlene touched the rusted hinge. The shed door hung half open, like a question no one wanted to answer. Flies buzzed around the corner, slow and lazy like they'd lived there longer than anybody. Did you know she kept things out here? Marlene asked. Boyd watched her. He didn't answer. Cloth bundles, knots tied tight. One time she told me not to touch something, said it'd curse me blind. You were 7. I remember. Boyd stepped off the porch. His boots hit gravel. It's grief talking, girl. You think I'm making it up? I think you're cracked wide open, and there ain't no shame in it. She stood and wiped her hands on the back of her dress. Then why don't you listen? Because you sound like your mama did, right before she started speaking to the walls. That shut her up. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked down at the dirt. Inside the shed, something moved. Not much, just a shift in the light. She flinched. You hear that? She whispered. Boyd didn't turn. Rats. Didn't sound like rats. Maybe it was grief again. He pulled a hip flask from his coat, offered it. She shook her head. I'm not drinking with you today. It'd help. Don't want help, she said. I want the truth. He sighed heavily and leaned on the porch post like the weight of it was too much. His badge caught the last bit of sun, dull gold, scratched. You think she went crazy, Marlene said. You all do. I think your mama had pain, and it ate at her. She knew something lived in that shed. She used to sleep with her back to the door, every single night. She lost a child, Marlene. Number she buried one. Different thing. The sheriff stiffened. His eyes flicked to the shed. He didn't say anything for a long while. Inside the house, someone dropped a dish. It shattered. No one cursed. No one moved to clean it up. Did your daddy ever tell you what happened back here in 93? Boyd asked. Number. He stopped talking when I turned 11. There was a smell like copper and milk. Marlene turned to him. So, you do remember? I didn't say that. Yes, you did. He took a long drink, wiped his mouth. Let it lie, girl. That's all anyone's ever done. Lie. The shed door creaked again. Wind, maybe. Or not. Marlene didn't move. Smells back, she said. Same as when I was a kid. Thick and curdled. Sour. You're just remembering. No, she said. I'm reliving. The ground felt soft under her bare feet, wet in places. She glanced at the foundation. Molds climbed the boards like vines. Green, black, pulsing slowly. Uncle Boyd, she said. What? You were supposed to protect her. He flinched, real, fast, then masked it. I did what I could. No, you didn't. He turned toward her, voice lower. You think it's easy? You think I didn't hear the cries, too? I was here, Marlene. I was always here. Then why'd she die alone? He didn't answer. The sun dipped behind the hill. The dairy barn cast a long shadow across the yard. Marlene looked away from it. I haven't gone in there since she passed, she said. The barn? No, she pointed. That. Boyd followed her gaze to the side of the farmhouse, a square smear on the wall, white, sun-bleached, except for one thing, a child's handprint, pale and pressed into an old cheese mold. You try to wash it? He asked. Every day. It came back. Number it just never left. He scratched his jaw. That isn't right. No, it isn't. They stood in silence. The cows were quiet, too. No bellows, no hooves on dry dirt. Just that sound, soft, wet crying, from the shed. You hear it now? She asked. Boyd stiffened. Sounds like it's coming from inside the wood. He walked to the shed. Hand on the edge, pushed it open a little more. The light cut sideways into the dark. Empty. Dust in the air. A bucket. A cracked stool. Rope, frayed and looped around a nail. He stepped inside. Don't, Marlene warned. He scanned the space. There isn't anything here. She waited. Stay long enough. He'll show. Who's he? You tell me. Boyd stared at the far corner. Something small, a scrap of fabric. His face tightened. He bent and picked it up, turned it over in his hands. You recognize that? Marlene asked. He didn't answer. Just fold it. Slowly. Back outside, he lit another match. Shook it out before it caught. Are you going tooling to tell me what that was? She asked. No. I'll find out anyway. Maybe. I think you already know who cried in here, she said, and I think Mama never forgave you for letting him go. Boyd swallowed. Hard. His boots shifted on gravel. He looked older now, all the way broken. You stay out here after dark, he said. Marlene stepped closer, voice low. You scared too? He met her eyes. Everyone should be. Then he walked. Away. Left the match in the dirt. Smell of smoke, but no flame. Marlene sat again. Pulled her knees to her chest, listened. The crying had stopped, but the land still hummed. The diner was too clean for this town. Plastic booths, salt crusted on the windowsills, grease-slick fans humming above. Marlene stood by the counter, hair a mess, black dress wrinkled at the shoulders, eyes raw, voice low. You ask me that again, I'll pour the damn pot down your throat. The man across from her, Ray Talbert, who used to haul feed for her daddy, held up his hands and laughed too loud. Come on now, I don't mean anything by it, just asking if the dairy's staying in the family or not. Marlene's hand didn't shake. She lifted the glass pot of coffee and dumped it straight in his lap. The scream was high and useless. The diner went still. Forks paused mid-air. Jesus, girl! Ray pushed back from the table, soaked from belt to knees. Coffee dripped from his boots. What the hell's wrong with you? Marlene stepped over his chair like it wasn't there. Ask me again. See if you limp next time. A sharp whistle came from the corner. Sheriff Boyd stood by the door. Hats off, holster visible. Outside, now. Marlene didn't flinch. He asked about Mama's land, like it was already his. He's got burns on his lap. I aimed low on purpose. Boyd grabbed her arm, not rough, just firm. She didn't fight it. Behind them, the other diners watched without blinking, the kind of stare that knew how to spread stories by sundown. In the corner booth, a woman in a red coat took a slow sip of her soda. She hadn't moved once since it started, just sat there, eyes on Marlene like she was watching a movie. Outside, the sky was flat and gray. Boyd lit a cigarette. Are you losing it? Have you ever had someone ask for your mama's grave before the dirt settled? Girl, you just made things worse. For whom? For you. She paced on the sidewalk, worn heels clicking. Let 'em talk. They were never on her side anyway. I get you're mad. I'm not mad. I'm rotting. I smell it. You smell it. He squinted. What? Bad milk. It's in my clothes, in my teeth. Like it's coming out of me. He looked at her for a long time, didn't say anything. Behind the glass, the woman in the red coat stood up. I walked to the register, paid in cash. As she turned to leave, she paused at the doorway, looked straight at Boyd. Is that your niece? He hesitated. That's my ghost. She nodded like she understood. Left behind a folded napkin with red lipstick on the edge. I walked out and didn't look back. Marlene watched her go. Who's that? Name's Delia. She doesn't talk much. Looks like she listens plenty. Yeah, that's the part I don't like. Later back home, the house was still. Too still. The air inside hung. Heavy. Sour with wet wood and cheese mold. Marlene stood in the kitchen, turning the napkin over in her hands. The lipstick mark was perfect, like a seal. She folded it smaller and tucked it in her coat pocket without knowing why. The shed door was closed when she walked past it, locked since yesterday. But when she turned back from the porch, it was open. Not all the way, just a sliver, enough for the smell to leak out, enough to feel watched. She didn't move toward it. I didn't need to. Something had moved first. The church smelled like lemon oil and dust. It always had, even when she was little, even when her mama made her wear tights and keep her mouth shut. The sermon was already halfway done when Marlene pushed open the back door. Her boots echoed on the wood floor. Heads turned. She walked straight down the aisle. The preacher cleared his throat and tried to keep going. For a daughter to obey is to honor, and for a woman to submit is to... Marlene stopped halfway down, folded arms, stared at him like he'd just said something really stupid. He faltered. To submit is to serve the Lord, and She stepped forward, climbed the steps, and crossed the altar. The congregation froze. Mouths open. No one dared breathe. She spat. Right there. Big and wet on the white cloth. The preacher backed away. Miss Marlene, you preach obedience. I bury my mother. Isn't that funny? Now's not the time. I make my own time. She turned on her heel and walked out. No one stopped her. The doors creaked open behind her, then closed like they'd never been touched. Outside, the sun cut through thin clouds. The graveyard behind the church was silent. Her boots hit the gravel hard. Marlene! She didn't stop. Marlene, wait! Lenny caught up to her just past the old tree line. She was out of breath, red in the face, with sweater sleeves pushed up. You think you're the only one Mama kept from the barn, Lenny said. Marlene stopped. You saw it too? No. You're lying. I didn't see, Lenny said. I heard. And then she bled for 3 days. They stared at each other. The air between them felt sharp. When was this? I was 12. I thought it was my fault. I thought maybe it was something I did. Marlene looked toward the ridge behind the dairy. What did it sound like? A man. Crying. Then, not a man. Marlene nodded once. Come on. Where? Back of the shed. The trail behind the dairy was overgrown. Weeds as high as their knees. Old broken fence wire still curled at the edge of the path. The cows didn't come back here. Neither did the birds. Are you sure we should be? Lenny started. I'm not asking permission. Behind the shed, the ground was soft, damp, like it had rained just there. Marlene knelt and started digging with her hands. Lenny hesitated, then joined her. They didn't talk while they dug, just the sound of breath, roots snapping, fingers scraping. The dirt was black and clung to their nails. Then Marlene stopped. Got something. She pulled out a cloth bundle, rotted through, but still knotted tight. Inside was a small rusted knife, bone handle, stained. Lenny stepped back. Nope. Number Marlene unwrapped the second layer, a lock of hair, gray blonde, tied with old thread. Lenny shook her head. No, that isn't right. Marlene stood, hands trembling. You know who that is? No. Yes, you do. Lenny looked down at the hole. I thought she made that stuff up. She didn't. Then why'd she keep it buried? Because a man isn't a god, Marlene said. But out here, folks treat him like one till he cries blood. She picked up the knife and the hair and wrapped them back tight. Her voice dropped low. I think Mama tried to end it. I think she failed. Lenny looked pale. I don't want to know more. Too late. They walked back toward the house in silence. The shed door hung open just a crack. Like always, the air was thick again. Smelt like milk gone wrong. Lenny stopped near the fence. You still hear it? Every night, Marlene said. And sometimes when I don't want to. Lenny turned and left without a word. Marlene stood alone, dirt on her dress, hands full of something old and wrong. The wind picked up. The shed creaked once like it was remembering. Then it went quiet again. Too quiet. The tree was older than the house. Its bark cracked like dry skin, limbs twisted high over the back field. Marlene stood under it, staring up. The apron was still there, white once, now gray, curled by sun and rain, wrapped tight around the branch like it tied itself. She remembered the day Mama hung it, mid-August. Hot, flies buzzing around the milk pails. Mama walked out with cheesecloth in one hand and Annan and apron in the other, said she needed the wind to dry things. But she tied it wrong, not like laundry, like she meant it to stay. Marlene had been 8, standing by the shed. I heard a sound then. Hi, ong. It made her stomach twist. Mama didn't move, just stared at the tree like it owed her something. Now Marlene took hold of the lower limb and pulled herself up. Bark dug into her palms. The branch creaked loudly under her weight. She paused. If you snap, I'm not going to scream. The wind said nothing. The apron flapped once she climbed higher. The knot had grown into the wood. The tree had swallowed part of the fabric. She touched the edge. It felt dry, brittle, still smelt faintly like sour milk and lye soap. Below, the grass shifted. Mama said he cried here, Marlene said softly. A voice answered. What makes you think it was a he? Marlene looked down. Delia stood near the trunk, red coat sharp against the gray field. One hand in her pocket, the other holding a cigarette. You again. Delia smiled. You again. You've been following me? Number just seemed to end up where I'm needed. Don't like that answer. You aren't supposed to. Marlene climbed down, boots hitting dirt with a soft thud. She dusted off her hands. What do you want? She asked. Same thing you do. Then say it out loud. Delia looked up at the apron. She hung that the day I left. You knew her? I worked with her, back before the barn turned wrong. Marlene's mouth tightened. You helped her make cheese. I helped her keep secrets. They stood quiet for a beat. The air between them held something electric. You heard the scream? Marlene asked. I did. Did you tell anyone? Delia shook her head. They wouldn't have listened. Same as now. Delia nodded. Same as always. Marlene walked past her slowly. Why'd you leave? Because I knew what was coming, and I wasn't brave enough to stay. Are you here to fix that? Maybe, or maybe just to witness. They walked toward the shed. The door hung open again. Always open. You believe in curses? Marlene asked. I believe in the consequences. Same thing, as far as I can tell. They stopped at the base of the tree. The wind picked up. The apron twisted, one corner snapping like it remembered. She kept something behind that shed, Marlene said. She kept everything behind that shed. She used to sit here, the same spot I sit now, said it helped her think. She wasn't thinking. She was waiting. For what? Delia turned to her. For it to come back. The wind dropped. The field went still. No birds, no rustle, just quiet. Why didn't she cut it down? Marlene asked. The tree? Yeah. Same reason she didn't burn the barn. Fear. Love. Marlene looked up. I don't understand that. Delia lit another cigarette. Hope you never do. They stood there, side by side, watching the old cloth sway in the wind like it was still alive, like it is still remembered. Marlene didn't move. She didn't need to. The scream didn't come today, but the tree sure looked like it was waiting. The dairy had a silence to it now. Not peace, not resting, just absence. No clang of tin, no mooing in the distance, no flies. Just that smell. Old milk, sour and sweet, too thick for air. Marlene pushed open the side door, hinges catching. The inside was dim. No one had swept in weeks. She didn't bother with the light. Delia followed behind. Coat open, smoke already rising from the cigarette between her lips. You always keep the windows shut. Marlene didn't look back. Smell doesn't leave either way. They passed the aging racks. Half-cracked wheels of cheese, mottled white and gray, a few oozing from their sides. The wax had split on some. The worst were soft to the touch and collapsed in the middle like they'd been bruised. Delia ran a finger across one and sniffed it. Christ. Don't say his name here. They stopped at the far end of the room. A low wooden door beneath the rack, bolted twice. Cellar entrance. The floor warped around it. Marlene pulled at the latch. It groaned. She braced her foot and yanked harder. Nothing. Stuck, she muttered. Delia took a drag. Are you sure you want it open? No. But you're going to. Oh. Marlene squatted, dug her fingers into the seam and gritted her teeth. Pulled again. The bolt gave a little, then snapped. The door creaked up an inch and stopped. Black air breathed out like it had been holding its breath for years. Delia stepped closer. Your mama kept it shut for a reason. Marlene straightened, breathing hard. You said she made something down there. She did. What? Delia tapped her ash on the floor. Said it was for protection or revenge. Marlene blinked. Which one worked? Delia looked down at the door. Neither. They didn't speak for a minute. The hum of silence inside the dairy felt heavier now, like someone else was in the room. Marlene turned toward the stalls. Cows change too. They still produce. Some, but not right. Milk smells like tin. Cream floats are weird. One day it's thick, the next it's water. Delia followed her down the row. Empty troughs, dried straw. One cow stood near the far wall, head down, eyes half shut. She used to follow me, Marlene said. Now she won't even look. Animals know. Yeah, Marlene said. That's what scares me. Outside, the wind knocked something over. A loose bucket rolled across the dirt. Marlene turned quickly. Delia didn't flinch. What did your mama say about the well? Delia asked. Not much. She stopped using it last winter. Said the taste turned bitter. Delia squinted. Bitter how? Like old iron and root water, like something pulled up from deeper than we ever dug. Delia took a last drag and stubbed the cigarette on a rusted pipe. Have you ever drunk from it? Marlene nodded. Once. The sweetest thing I ever tasted. And? The next day I woke up bleeding from the nose. They circled back to the cellar door. The bolt hung loose now, like it was waiting. Marlene didn't touch it again. She grabbed a towel from the counter and wiped her hands. Has that door always been that short? Delia asked. As far as I remember. Doesn't match the foundation. Marlene looked over. What? Dairy's built square. That door's angled, set into the stone like an afterthought. You're saying it wasn't part of the original build? Delia shook her head. I'm saying it doesn't belong. Marlene stared at the floor, quiet. Later that night, the cows bloomed. Not like hunger, not like pain, like a warning, long and mournful. Marlene sat on the porch, shotgun across her lap, eyes on the barn. Delia leaned against the rail, flask in hand. Did you ever ask your mama what was in the cellar? She said. Once. She slapped me. What did she say after? She said, that thing in the dark, doesn't it need your name? They sat in silence. The wind shifted. The cows grew louder. A thud came from inside the barn. Then another. Fast. Sharp. Marlene stood. That isn't right. She crossed the yard quickly, with Delia behind her. The barn door creaked open on its own. The air inside was thick and smelt of blood and wet earth. One of the cows lay on its side, legs kicking slowly, foam at the mouth. Its head bled from the top, a split right down the center like it had slammed into the wall over and over. Marlene dropped to her knees. God damn it! Delia held a hand over her mouth. What the hell happened? She did this to herself. Why? Marlene ran a hand down the cow's neck. She knew something was coming. The cow gave a last shuddered breath and went still. Flies gathered fast. Delia stepped back. This is what happens when you try to bury things that breathe. Marlene stood up slowly. It isn't buried anymore. The next morning, the smell got worse. The dairy's walls sweated. Molds bloomed around the cellar door. Milk turned yellow. Every wheel of cheese cracked down the middle like they'd been split by heat. Marlene sat on the cellar steps with a crowbar, hand trembling. Delia stood at the top, arms crossed. Are you sure? Marlene nodded. It's mine now. You don't have to own it. Marlene looked up. You said she made it, which means it didn't start with her. Delia didn't answer. Marlene jammed the crowbar into the seam, pried hard. The wood groaned, then lifted. A cold breath rushed up, smelt like salt and rot. She pulled it open all the way. The stairs were narrow, stone, wet, leading down into nothing. Delia stepped forward. Wait till morning. Marlene shook her head. If it's going to take something, let it try tonight. The two women stood above the hole, breathing shallowly. The cellar waited, and the milk still wouldn't curdle. The sheriff's office smelt like old sweat and wood polish. A cracked leather couch sagged under the window. Dust moved lazily in the sunbeams, catching in the blinds. Marlene pushed the door open hard and didn't wait to be asked in. She slapped a folded letter down on his desk, paper crinkled, seal half torn. Boyd looked up from his paperwork. Good morning to you too. Marlene didn't smile. You see that? He leaned forward, squinted at the county seal, then at the black type. Land acquisition. You knew this was coming. I didn't, he said. You lie like you breathe. He sat back in his chair, reached for the top drawer, and pulled out a bottle and 2 glasses. She waved him off. Don't insult me. Didn't know we were calling that an insult now. She crossed her arms. They want the farm. Say it's zoned for redevelopment. The agricultural exception expired. I looked it up. Expired 2 days after Mama passed. Boyd poured himself a drink slowly. That timing's convenient. Are you going too long to tell me it's a coincidence? No such thing, he said. He drank half the glass in one go, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His one good eye looked at her over, tired and worn. Do you come here to yell, or do you come here for truth? I came here to ask what you buried. Boyd stared at her, didn't blink. Marlene sat in the wooden chair across from him. Her hands were clenched in her lap. There was a boy who went missing back in '93, he said finally. Last place anyone saw him. That shed Marlene's breath caught. You told me no one ever went near it. Didn't say that. Said nobody should. She leaned forward. What happened to him? He set the glass down. My name is Eli Dobson, 7 years old. Lived 2 farms down. Came over with his daddy for milk. Got bored. Wandered off. Daddy didn't notice till they were halfway home. What did Mama say? She said she never saw him. She said maybe he ran off into the woods, but I found his shoe in the mud behind the shed. Marlene's throat tightened. Do you do anything about it? I filed a report. That's all. Boyd shifted in his seat. I was told not to dig too deep. By whom? He hesitated. The preacher and the governor's liaison. Marlene laughed once, dry and sharp. The hell does the governor care about a dairy farm? Boyd poured another drink. That's what I asked. Are you going too long to tell me what they said? They said the farm had value, old value, that the land was tied to older things than zoning permits. She stood up. You let a kid disappear so they could keep their secrets. I didn't let anything. I was told. You're the goddamn sheriff. I was your mama's brother. Silence dropped like a curtain. She paced once across the room. Why now? She asked. Why take it now? He opened the bottom drawer, pulled out a thick, dusty file, yellowed paper tied in string, slid it across the desk toward her. Been holding this for years, he said, waiting till you were ready. Marlene didn't touch it. What's in it? Everything I wasn't supposed to see. Photos, statements, letters from your mama, letters to the preacher, one from the county clerk that just says, do not disturb. She reached down and untied the string, flipped it open. The first page was a black and white photo. The shed. The door is open, a shadow just inside. Second page, a handwritten note. Mama's cursive, words smeared. Boyd watched her carefully. She tried to confess once. To what? She never said. Just came in shaking. Said she was being punished. Said he'd come back if she didn't make it right. Boyd swallowed. She didn't say a name, just kept repeating, he cries for me. He cries through the wood. Over and over. Marlene sat back down. Why'd you keep all this? Because I owed her. And because I couldn't carry it anymore. She flipped through more pages. A map. Hand-drawn. The farm, the well, and the shed are circled in red. You believe her? She asked. He looked at his drink. I believe something happened. You still think it's just grief talking. I think grief opens doors we don't mean to open. Marlene folded the folder shut. Are you going to stop him from taking it? I don't have that kind of pull. You're the law. I'm what's left of it. She stood again. They come for it. They're going to meet me first. Boyd looked up at her, his face drawn. You're your mother's girl. She paused at the door. No. He raised an eyebrow. I'm your sister's girl. Then she walked out. Back at the farm, she laid the folder on the kitchen table, flipped through it slowly. Each photo felt heavier. A page tucked in the back held a list of dates. 1969, 1972, 1978, all with the same note beside them. Heard him cry. Mama bled after. Marlene poured herself water, drank half, set the glass down. The air in the house shifted. The shed door slammed outside. She didn't jump. She just waited. The barn stood hollow and hot in the morning haze. Paint peeled back like dry skin. The lock rusted to the latch. Marlene didn't touch it, just stared. Something pulsed behind her eyes. Not pain. Not yet. Delia stepped out from the side path, cigarette already lit, coat off, boots dusty. Are you waiting on it to speak first? Marlene didn't flinch. You said you'd tell me when I was ready. I said I'd tell you when it was time. It's time. Delia nodded once slowly. She walked to the porch rail and leaned. Smoke curled around her jaw. Your mama didn't tell you anything? Marlene kept her eyes on the barn. She told me to stay out of the shed, stay out of the cellar, stay quiet. Did she tell you why? No. Delia watched her for a moment. Then I guess I will. She sat on the porch step, hands loose in her lap. No drama, just breath and bone. I came here when I was 16. My daddy worked sugar beets up north. I ran. Your mama gave me a cot in the back room. I scrubbed vats, hauled salt, learned the curd. We got close. She trusted me. Marlene sat beside her, stiff. The barn creaked like it was listening. She started showing. No one knew but me. The belly stayed small. She hid it well. She said she'd handle it alone. Never told me who the father was. Marlene's voice was quiet. You ever ask? Once. What did she say? She said he wasn't a man you called back. The silence grew thick between them. A bird called once in the trees, then stopped. Delia stared ahead. I was with her when she went into labor. No doctor, just blankets and boiled water. Her mouth bled from biting it shut. She told me not to scream, not to cry. Said the walls remember noise. Marlene's hands curled into fists. Delia's voice dropped. When he came out, he didn't cry. Marlene turned toward her. He just breathed, Delia said. Wet and heavy. And wrong. Marlene said nothing. He had too many fingers, eyes too wide. His skin was the color of curdled milk. His back bowed. She said he looked like she had nightmares. Are you sure it wasn't just birth defects? I'm sure, Delia said. He looked borrowed. Marlene stood, took 2 steps toward the barn. She called him her atonement, said she wasn't meant to love anyone again. She kept him. She made a space for him, dug out behind the shed, lined it with straw, old wool blankets, and jars of milk. She called it the quiet room. He lives there? He never left. Marlene stared at the ground. How long? 2 winters. He didn't grow like other kids. His hair turned white before he could stand. His teeth came in too sharp. He didn't talk, but he hummed. Marlene's face twisted. You mean cried? No. Hummed. Low. Constant. Like a hive behind a wall. The barn popped loud in the sun. Wood shifting. Nails expanding. Sometimes, Delia whispered, he'd stop. That's when I'd worry. Marlene didn't look back. Why didn't anyone in town know? She didn't let anyone near. Paid deliveries in cash. Never let him out in daylight. Said the light made him shake. Marlene's breath caught. Did she love him? Delia nodded. She never held anyone else after. Not you. Not your daddy. Not even me. I remember, Marlene said. She'd hum back to him, Delia said. Same tone. Through the wallboards, like a call and answer. Marlene looked back at her. When did it stop? Delia pulled at the corner of her cigarette. One night in January, the coldest one I remember, he screamed, not like before. This was sharp, like he'd torn something open inside. And then nothing. Marlene's jaw trembled. We went out back, Delia said. Your mama was already there, crying, rockin'. He was wrapped in her apron. His head hung wrong. She said he'd been sick. Said the land took what it wanted. Marlene's chest ached. Did you bury him? We tried. You tried? Delia flicked ash into the dirt. We wrapped him tight and dug a hole behind the oak. We said a few words. She left a cheese wheel at the foot like an offering. When we came back in the morning, Marlene turned. He was gone. Marlene's face went pale. The whole hole was there. Blankets gone. No tracks. You think he climbed out? I think he was never dead. Silence pressed down like dirt. I thought maybe an animal dragged him off. But your mama, she didn't believe that. She started boarding the shed, started whispering at night. He said he'd visit her in dreams. Said he was still hungry. Marlene whispered. I heard the crying. Delia nodded. I did too. You should have told me. I wasn't sure you could carry it. I've carried worse, not knowing. Delia looked down. That's fair. Marlene stared at the barn again. So what now? He's tied to this land. He's tied to me. You aren't the one who birthed him. No, Marlene said, but I'm the one who's left. Delia stood. You think he's still out there? I think he never left. Marlene walked to the edge of the porch, boots crunching gravel. She looked at the barn, then the shed, then the oak. The whole time I thought it was the house that hurt her, she said. Turns out it was him. Delia shook her head. Number the house was just a place to put the pain. Marlene crossed her arms. Are you still scared of him? Yes. I'm not. That's what worries me. They didn't speak after that. The wind died. The air soured. Inside the barn, something shifted. Boards creaked in rhythm. Not wind, not weight, not wood. A hum. Marlene heard it first. Delia turned, eyes wide. The same tone from her childhood. Low, ancient, familiar. Marlene whispered, he's calling again. Delia's voice cracked. Don't answer. But Marlene was already moving. Toward the shed. Toward the quiet room. Toward the hum. She didn't bleed, but she was already dying. And she knew it. She didn't stop walking. The cellar door groaned louder the second time they tried. Marlene's palms were raw from pulling, her shoulder tight, but she didn't stop. Delia braced her foot on the floorboards and pried with the crowbar again. Something cracked beneath the wood. A sharp, wet snap. Then the latch gave with a long, breathy sigh, like the room below had lungs. The door didn't swing. It slumped. The air poured out slowly and thick. Damp, sour, like milk curdled in dirt. Delia stepped back, one hand over her mouth. Smells like something dead knew it was going to die. Marlene didn't flinch. It's been down there too long. They stood at the top of the narrow stairs. No light reached the bottom, only the edge of the old stone steps, chipped and mossed over. Marlene pulled the lantern from the hook and struck the match with a clean snap. The flame caught, shaky at first, then steady. She lowered it into the dark. Delia hesitated. "Are you sure?" "No." "Are you going anyway?" Marlene didn't answer. They descended one step at a time. Wood creaked above them. The walls were stone, cold to the touch. Dust stuck to sweat. The air didn't move. It hung there, wet and watching. At the bottom, the lantern casts the room in orange. It wasn't big, maybe 8 feet wide, 10 deep. Floor dirt-packed, ceiling low. Shelves built into the wall with rusted nails. Glass jars line the shelves, hundreds of them, wax-sealed, labeled in Mama's handwriting. Delia stepped close to one. Her face went pale. "Don't touch," Marlene said. Delia didn't. Inside the first jar, a human nail, thick, yellow, still with dirt at the base. The next one held 3 molars, then one with a braid, long, gray-blonde, wrapped in red thread. Delia whispered, "What the hell is this?" Marlene didn't look away. "Offerings." "To whom?" "Not who." "What?" The jars got worse. One with a tongue dried and curled like old meat. One with a child's tooth tied to a pin. One was sealed with something that floated. It looked like a thumb, but longer than it should have been. Delia turned, gagging. "Number no, no, no." Marlene stood still. She fed it. Or tried to. Delia wiped her mouth. These were people. I think they still are. The lantern flickered. In the far corner, something was wrapped in burlap. Size of a child. Maybe smaller. Tied tight with what looked like hair. Delia stepped back. "Don't." Marlene moved closer. Delia's voice cracked. "We buried him. We did. I remember the dirt. I remember the blood." Marlene crouched beside the bundle. "Then who's crying now?" The burlap wriggled. Once, like something inside rolled over in its sleep. Then still. Delia froze. "Marlene." "I hear it every night." The air grew colder. Marlene reached toward the hair knot, fingers shaking. Delia lunged, grabbed her wrist. "Don't untie it. I have to." "You don't. He's tied to this house." Delia's eyes brimmed. "And you think opening that'll free him?" "I think leaving it here feeds him." They stared at each other, breathing heavily. The bundle didn't move again, but the jars rattled softly, like something walked above them. Marlene stood. "This cellar isn't sealed." "No." "This land gives back what it owes." Delia shook her head. "Then we better decide what we're owed." They climbed out slowly. The lantern dimmed. The cellar door creaked shut behind them on its own. Neither of them spoke until the night swallowed the last light and the house groaned loud as thunder, because below their feet something had stirred, and neither woman said the name, but both of them knew it, and both of them knew it was memorable. The crying started just after dusk, long and low, like someone being born wrong through the floorboards. Not loud, not sharp, just steady, steady enough to hollow the walls. Marlene sat on the kitchen floor, back to the fridge, lantern flickering, ears plugged. It didn't matter. It still got in. Through the seams in the windows, through the grain in the wood, through her teeth. The cows stopped eating that morning, hadn't touched a flake of hay, just stood there, pressed to the barn wall, eyes wide, bodies rigid. One calf's mouth hung open, gums pale. Not dead, but not here. Delia sat at the kitchen table, coat draped over the chair, hands curled around an unlit cigarette. She hadn't spoken in over an hour. "Do you hear it now?" Marlene asked. Delia didn't answer. "I know you do." Delia struck a match. "It isn't just in the walls anymore." "Where then?" "In us." Marlene stood, dizzy. "I walked to the window, taped plywood over it this morning, nailed it shut. The crying still bled through." She touched the wood. It throbbed. "You can't stay," Delia said. "You leaving?" Delia nodded. "Before I go deaf from grief." "You told me to open the cellar." "I didn't know what we'd wake up to." "You saw the jars." "I saw what she fed it." "You saw the burlap." Delia looked away. "I smelt." Marlene crossed the room. "You said we buried him." "I thought we did." "So where is he now?" Delia met her eyes. "You think he ever really stayed put?" Marlene didn't answer. The crying twisted again, climbing into something like singing, but it wasn't words, just memory. Marlene grabbed the hammer. "I'm boarding the shed." Delia stood. "Won't help." "I have to do something." "You should leave it alone." "I left it alone for 20 years. Look where that got us." Delia stepped back. "I'm leaving tonight." Marlene's voice cracked. "You're the only one who told me the truth. That's why I have to go." They stood in the silence between them. The crying pushed harder now. Through the floor, through the pipes. The cows screamed once, far off, then fell quiet again. Marlene walked out. She nailed the boards across the shed door with her mouth shut tight, blood on her knuckles. No moon out, just sweat and nails and the sound of her own breath. Inside the house, Delia packed 2 shirts, 1 knife, a red napkin she kept for no reason. Marlene came back in just before dawn, eyes rimmed with gray. "It didn't help," she said. Delia zipped her bag. "He still cries." "I know." Marlene grabbed her arm. "Then stay." Delia shook her head. Marlene let go. The front door creaked open on its own. The house moaned low. Pipes rattled. Delia stepped outside, paused. "He wants a mother," she said. Marlene swallowed. He had one. Delia didn't turn around. Maybe she wasn't enough. She walked into the dark, the sound chasing her through the trees. Marlene stood alone, hammer still in hand. The crying didn't stop, even when she covered her ears. The folder hadn't moved since she laid it on the table 3 nights ago. It sat heavy under the weak lamp, edges curled from age, still tied with fraying twine. Marlene didn't want to open it again. She did anyway. The paper crackled like dried skin. She flipped through arrest logs, field notes, and oil-smudged maps. Then, near the back, a thick black and white photograph tucked inside an old payroll sheet. She slid it out slowly. 4 men stood in front of the shed, all in suits, all smiling stiffly. Sheriff Boyd is younger. Preacher Halverson with that smug tilt to his mouth. The governor at the time, clean cut, hand in his pocket like he owned the dirt under him, but it was the man beside them who took the air out of her lungs. Gray suit, too clean. Silver watch on his wrist, half covered by his cuff. He looked straight at the camera, eyes blank like he'd been carved out. Behind them all, slightly out of focus, was her mama, standing half in shadow, apron on, head down. Marlene gripped the edge of the table. She stared at the man's face, pale, long, lips pressed thin. Her vision swam. "That's him," she whispered. "That's the man who came out of the shed." The screen door banged once behind her. Sheriff Boyd walked in slowly, wiping sweat from his neck. He saw the photo before she said a word. "Where'd you find that?" Marlene didn't look up. "You put it in the folder." "I didn't mean to." "Who is he?" Boyd stepped closer, squinted. "Looks like a business rep, some land surveyor." "He isn't." "Are you sure?" "I remember that face." He pointed. "That's the preacher. That's me." "I know who's who." She tapped the man's silver watch. "Same as the one I saw through the shed door. Same one on the crying thing, that night Mama died." Boyd's voice lowered. "That isn't possible." "Then why's he still got the same watch?" He leaned against the wall and rubbed his temple. "I don't remember this being taken." "You're in it." "I've been in a lot of places I don't remember." Marlene flipped the photo over. Handwritten on the back in tight script, or services rendered, 1972. She read it out loud. Boyd froze. "What service?" she asked. "Could be anything." Number it couldn't. He didn't answer. "Tell me what you know." Boyd shifted, jaw tense. "There were rumors that certain men met here, out by the shed. Said it was for tradition, said our town owed something." "Owed who?" "They called him father." Marlene stared. "The governor called him that?" Boyd nodded once. "Why?" He looked away. "Because they thought he was older than blood." Marlene's mouth went dry. Boyd whispered, They said he kept the land fertile, that he answered in cries. All you had to do was feed him. She backed away from the table. Mama knew. She did. Did you? He looked at her. I suspected. I chose not to ask. Marlene's voice cracked. You knew they gave her to him. No. You knew. I didn't know it was her until years later. She pointed to the photo. She's right there. She isn't looking at the camera. No, Marlene said. She's looking at him. Boyd stepped forward. You don't know what it was like. They said if we stopped, the crops would fail. The wheels would turn. And they did. Every time we didn't listen. You let him take her. No. Then who did? Boyd's voice dropped. The town. Marlene turned away. She opened the drawer, pulled out the knife she found behind the shed. Hold it firm. Are you going to kill the past? I'm going to bleed it. Boyd didn't stop her. She took the photo and the knife. I walked outside. The sun is barely up. The shed sat still, half swallowed in shadow. She knelt in the dirt, dug into the ground with her hands, tossing rocks aside. She laid the photo down, the knife beside it. Here, she said, take it back. The wind shifted. The door creaked, and deep inside the wood, something hummed. The cellar door was still nailed shut from the night before. The nails were bent and rusted, like they didn't want to come back out. Marlene crouched low, slipped the claw of the hammer beneath the first one, and pulled slowly. The wood groaned. She didn't look behind her. She knew she was alone now. The last nail came free with a sharp crack. She opened the hatch. The dark inside smelt thicker than it had 2 nights ago, like something down there had breathed too deep and long. She lit the lantern and climbed down the stone steps. The jars hadn't moved. They never did. The shelf leaned heavier to the left, but the wax seals still held. Marlene didn't touch them. She moved past the bundle in the corner, past the burlap, past the knot of hair. She found the crate tucked beneath the bottom shelf, waterlogged, covered in dust. Inside were cheesecloths, stiff with time, a cracked photograph of the barn half melted from moisture, and at the very bottom, wrapped in butcher paper, a small black book. The cover was worn smooth. No title, just the weight of it. She sat on the cellar step and opened it. The first page was blank. Then her mama's handwriting began, slow and careful. He eats what I give him. He doesn't speak, but he listens. He watches. Always watches. Marlene turned the page. The sheriff says it's my fault. I said I'm not the one who made him. He said I was the one who kept him. I reckon both are true. She turned again. The ink here was smudged. The lines are more frantic. He likes salt. I don't like sweets. Milk calms him. Curds help him sleep. I tried to give him apples and he screamed until the barn shook. Marlene swallowed hard. Her fingers curled around the paper. I thought maybe he was God's way of breaking me open. I thought maybe if I loved him quietly, he'd stay small. But he grew too fast. He grew teeth before he ever smiled. She stopped reading. The cellar was dead silent. Even the wind above had stilled. Marlene shifted, hands tight on the book. Next page. He cried every night for 7 years. I told him stories. I hummed. I gave him what I had. I gave him what I stole. I took it from the town, from the cows, from the girls who didn't speak up. I brought it to him in baskets. He ate it all. He never said thank you. Marlene blinked. Her throat burnt. She flipped to the back. There were no more words, just a single drawing. Black ink, scratched deep into the page. A figure, hunched, limbs too long, spine crooked like a question mark, mouth open but no teeth, eyes hollow. Beneath it, scrawled in her mother's hand, "Don't ever lie to him." Marlene stared at the drawing. The page felt warm. Behind her, the burlap in the corner moved once, just a little. She didn't turn around, didn't breathe. She closed the book. She whispered, "I'm not lying." The cellar listened and didn't speak. The barn waited in silence, doors loose on their hinges, heat trapped beneath the roof like breath under skin. Marlene stood in the doorway with the gas can in one hand and a matchbook in the other. Her boots sank into the old straw. The cows had been gone since morning. She'd unlatched the pen herself, let them run. They didn't look back. She walked slowly down the center aisle, sloshing oil over the floorboards, over the troughs, over the hay, and over the walls where her mama used to hang cheesecloth like prayer flags. She soaked the corners, the posts, and the hollow in the dirt near the rear wall where the crying had once begun. She struck a match. The flame fluttered, then held. She dropped it. The fire took like it had been waiting. It raced up the walls, across the rafters, and swallowed the salt-stained wood and the nails her mama once bent with her bare hands. The smoke poured out thick and black, a hard, greasy smell. Something inside popped, glass maybe, or a joint in a beam splitting under pressure. Marlene stepped back, eyes fixed, hands loose. Behind her, the sheriff's truck kicked up dust coming down the drive. It stopped 20 yards out. Boyd climbed out fast. He didn't draw his weapon. He just stared at the flames. "Are you out of your mind?" She didn't look at him. Too late to ask. "You know what this'll do?" "Yeah." "You think burning it makes you safe?" "No." He walked closer. "You can't kill what isn't born right." She turned. "Watch me." The fire climbed higher, lit the sky orange. The barn moaned like it knew it was being killed for good. The roof fell in. Sparks flew. The last of the rafters curled in on themselves like ribs closing over a heart. Boyd didn't speak for a while. Then, low, "He'll just go somewhere else." "I know." "You think he'll go quiet?" "No." They stood there until the fire died down to embers. By dark, it was gone. Just smoke and black bones in a field of ash. Marlene didn't sleep that night. She lay on the living room floor with her eyes on the ceiling. No light on, no blanket, just the cold and the hum. The crying started again around 2. This time it came from under the house. Low, deep, close. She didn't move. The boards beneath her ribs pulsed like breath. She whispered, "You still want." It cried louder. She pressed her hands to the floor, felt heat rising. The barn was ash, but the thing had moved. Into the root, into the pipes, into the bones of the house her mama built with hands that fed it. This wasn't land. It was a womb, and it still remembered what it birthed. The smoke from the barn still clung to the trees. It didn't rise. It drifted low and slow, like it didn't want to leave. The field was black now. Nothing left but scorched wood, and a milk bucket melted to the dirt. The cows were gone. The men hadn't come. The world felt paused. Marlene sat in the dirt by the shed, knees tucked up, in the same spot her mama used to sit every morning before the sun crested. Her hair was tied back with the old leather cord she found in a box under the floorboards, the kind her mama wore when her hands were too full to fuss with vanity. Her palms were blistered from the fire. She didn't wrap them. The wind moved through the trees like it was choosing what to remember. She didn't cry. She didn't pray. She didn't shake. She waited. "I'm not afraid of you," she said. No one answered, not right away. Then the wind snapped through the oak behind her and circled around the shed, tight and low, like breath against her neck. The shed door stayed shut. The nails she'd driven into it days ago were still rusted, still crooked, still holding. But the crying came anyway. It didn't need the door. It came through the roots. At first it sounded like breath, then like wood splintering underwater, then like a boy's voice, half-formed, too old and too young at once. She whispered, "I know what you are now." The wind picked up. You were never hungry. You were just fed. The earth shifted beneath her. A pop sounded behind the shed, like something splitting deep in the dirt. You cried for her. You cried through her. Now you cry through me. The sky stayed quiet. No birds. No engine sounds from the road. No sheriff truck. No Delia. Marlene stood up slowly. She walked to the shed door. Her boots dragged in the ash. She pulled the hammer from her belt and prized out the first nail. It groaned. She paused. "If I open this," she said, "you stop hiding." The second nail dropped. "You face what made you." The third nail clattered into the E. Grass. "You face what's left of her." She ripped the final board free. The door shifted on its own. Just a little. Smoke blew out from the cracks. Cold, sour, familiar. She opened the door all the way. It was dark inside, not empty. Old blankets lay crumpled in the corner. A tin plate crusted with something dry. A rusted milk pail turned over on its side. And the dirt, wet in patches, like something had cried itself into the ground for decades. A shape sat in the corner, still. Slouched. Long arms, long legs, head tilted back against the wall. It breathed, but slowly. Soundless. She stepped inside. The air dropped 10 degrees. She didn't speak at first. Then, "You're quieter now." The thing moved its head. "I'm not her." It didn't flinch. "I'm not here to feed you." Its fingers curled slightly. "I'm here to end you." She pulled the knife from her waistband. The one she found behind the oak. The one with the bone handle and hair-wrapped hilt. The thing looked at her, eyes open, pale, gray. Not quite human. Not quite. "Child." She raised the knife. Then she stopped. Her hand trembled. The thing reached forward, not fast, not violent. It placed its hand on the dirt, beside the same spot her mama used to kneel. It didn't speak, but something inside her broke wide. Her voice cracked. "Is this where she heard you cry?" The thing breathed. She lowered the knife. The shed creaked. The wind stilled, and from the back of her throat, low and dry, she asked one last question. "Do you want to die?" The thing didn't nod, but it didn't move away. She stepped forward. The blade didn't shake anymore, because mercy doesn't mean love, and birth doesn't mean belonging. And she closed her eyes, and the crying stopped. The shed was quiet. Door half open. Morning light stretched thin across the floor, brushing the edge of the burlap. Marlene stepped through slowly. The dirt was dry. The smell was gone. No mold, no milk. Just a sharp stillness, like after a storm. The burlap sack lay torn wide at the seam, ripped down the side like it had burst from inside. The knots of hair that once held it were scattered across the floor, some still curled like they'd clung too long. No blood, nobody, no sign of where it crawled or walked or bled. She knelt beside the chain. It was snapped at the center, not rusted through, not worn, broken, like something pulled hard enough to split metal. Her name was carved into the back wall, letters deep, jagged, uneven, like it had taken its time. Marlene. She ran her fingers over it. It was fresh, still rough at the edges. Behind her, gravel shifted. Delia's voice was low. "He thinks you're her now." Marlene didn't turn. "He's wrong." "He doesn't care." She stood, faced her. "You came back." "I never left. Not all the way." Marlene stared. "Why now?" Delia looked toward the field. "Because you're close. He can feel it." Marlene's eyes narrowed. "Feel what?" "Grief. Emptiness. The same thing that made her feed him." "I'm not feeding anything." "Don't have to. He remembers the hands." Marlene stepped past her. "I'm done with the shed." Delia followed. "It isn't done with you." The ground cracked as they walked, roots exposed, dry grass folding in on itself. The cows hadn't returned. Nothing had. The silence made space for something else. Marlene stopped at the well. Delia stayed beside her. They didn't speak for a moment. Then Marlene said, "It always comes back here." Delia nodded. "Where it started." They looked down. Blackness. Deep. Still. Then it came. The cry. Climbing out from the dark like it had always been waiting. It scraped the walls, echoed up slowly. A sound like a name swallowed in fire. A sound that didn't want to be forgotten. Marlene closed her eyes. Delia whispered, "He's hungry again." Marlene said nothing, because this time she didn't feel fear. She felt recognition. He wasn't calling her Mama. He was calling her home. The rope was old, thick, and already fraying near the knot. Marlene looped it twice around the post beside the well, pulling it taut, testing the weight. She didn't look up, didn't speak. The morning light hadn't broken yet. The sky was a bruise, low and heavy. Smoke still curled from the black field behind the barn's ashes. The shed stood open, the cellar shut. The wind held its breath. Sheriff Boyd stood 6 paces back, arms stiff at his sides, face pale and damp. "You go down there, you aren't coming back." "That's the point. You don't know what's waiting." "I do." "You don't." She turned toward him, calm. "I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to let go." He swallowed. "I lost your mama to that thing. I'm not losing you." "You already did." Delia stepped forward and grabbed the rope, wrapped it around her wrist and braced it through both hands. "If you're going, I'm the one lowering you." "Are you sure?" "No one else left." Boyd looked between them. "This is madness." Marlene pulled the knife from her belt, bone handle, hair-wrapped hilt, tucked it between her teeth. She spat out the words through grit. Then watch! She stepped onto the rim of the well. Delia gripped the rope tight. Marlene nodded once, then leaned back. The rope gave. She dropped slowly. The world shrank above her. The wind, the light, the field, the sky, gone inch by inch, until all that was left was the stone throat of the well and the groan of the rope twisting. Water wasn't far down, maybe 30 feet. But it wasn't water she felt waiting for. It was something older. 10 feet down. The walls grew slick. 15. The crying started again. Not loud, not wild, just low. A hush hum, like breath against bone. 20 feet. Her boots scraped wet rock. She adjusted the knife. Keep going. The rope creaked. At 25 feet, the sound stopped. Total silence. She paused, hung there, eyes open wide. Then from the dark below, movement beneath her. Slow, deliberate. Not an animal owl. Not a child. Not anything she'd ever known. She let the rope go slack, dropped the last 5 feet, boots hitting the stone with a wet slap, knees bent. The lantern flicked on. There was no water, just mud, thick and black. And at the edge of the wall, him, bent, waiting, back turned to her. Bones is wrong, limbs long, skin like old wax. She spoke through her teeth. You called. The thing didn't move. I answered. It turned slowly. No face. Not really. Just indentations where eyes should be, mouth wide and low, like it had slipped too far down the skull. She stepped forward. Hold the knife low. It didn't growl. It didn't attack. It crouched, childlike, needing. She raised the blade, then paused, whispered, You want a mother? It tilted its head. You had one. It shivered. She fed you. She hid you. She broke herself into pieces trying to love you. The thing made a noise. Not crying, not breathing, something else. Marlene's hands didn't shake. She lifted the knife. Its arms opened slowly. Waiting. She stepped close and pressed the blade to its chest. It didn't resist. She didn't look away. I'll be the last girl you ever call mama. And she drove the blade straight in. The thing jerked once, grabbed her wrist. Then, still. The crying stopped. Above, Delia gripped the rope. Sheriff Boyd dropped to his knees beside her. Nothing. Then, faint, from the deep, Marlene's voice, clear as water. Hush now. I'm here. The rope didn't move for a long time. Delia held on, eyes locked on the coil, as if watching it hard enough would pull Marlene back up. Sheriff Boyd sat beside her, dirt under his nails, jaw clenched. How long's it been? He asked. Delia didn't answer. I can go down there. You can't save her. You think she's dead? Delia didn't blink. I think she did what none of us had the guts to do. The wind shifted, and from deep below they heard it, not crying, not screaming. Just one sound, a whisper. Hush now, I'm here. Then the rope jerked, not with weight, but with release. It went slack, sliding fast through Delia's hands until it hit the last knot at the bottom. Boyd ran to grab it. Too late. The well was silent again. Empty. He looked at Delia. You think she's gone? Delia stepped to the edge and looked down. She went where she had to. Below the well, the thing lay still in the mud, knife still in its chest. Marlene kneeled beside it, hand resting on its 2 long fingers. It had stopped breathing, but its skin still pulsed, like the land itself was trying to keep it alive. She touched its face. It twitched once, like a child dreaming something terrible. You're not hungry, she said. You're hollow. Its fingers curled weakly. You were born wrong, fed wrong, named wrong. She stood. The well above didn't look real anymore, just a faint circle of sky, far off and empty. She whispered, I'm not your mama. Then she stepped deeper into the dark. There was a tunnel, a narrow one, dug long ago, walled with roots. It pulsed too. She walked. Not fast, like she knew where she was going. The tunnel led to the back of the cellar. She pushed open the rotten slats and stepped into the cold room. The jars were gone. The shelves are empty, but the hum remained. Not from a mouth, from the land. It moved beneath her feet. She knelt, pressed her palm to the floor, and began to speak. Not a prayer, not a curse, just memory. He cried because we let him. We let him grow in silence. We let her carry it alone. And when it came time to stop him, no one did. The hum softened. She cut her palm with the same knife, let the blood drip into the dirt. No more mothers, she said. No more daughters. It ends here. The room shook once, then held. The cellar walls split, roots pulled back, the hum cracked, the earth screamed. Then, silence. Real silence. Not the kind that waits, the kind that closes. Above, Boyd and Delia felt the rumble. The ground shifted under their boots. The well cracked down the center. A line split through the post. The rope burned itself up from the inside, then turned to ash. Delia didn't move. Boyd stared into the smoke. "She's gone," he said. Delia shook her head. "No. She didn't make it out. She didn't need to." They turned to the field. The grass had begun to grow again. Slow. Software. 1 week later, no more crying. No sounds from the cellar, no sounds from the shed, no sounds from the well, just wind and dust, and something close to peace. Boyd stood at the edge of the dairy, looking out over the land. Delia stood beside him. "They'll come," she said. "Who?" "Statemen, churchmen, anyone who used to listen to the crying." "And when they ask?" Delia lit a cigarette. "We tell them the truth." He raised a brow. She blew out smoke. "The last girl went down to meet the thing they made, and she buried him properly." Boyd nodded. "That's what she did." Delia's voice dropped. "That's what she became." Final image. The well is sealed. The cellar is filled. The shed door is shut for good. And deep beneath the house, roots sleep quietly again. Not crying. Not waiting. Just quiet. Because the last girl he ever called Mama never climbed back out. She became the silence he never earned. And this time, the quiet stayed quiet.